So, hello, we continue on Recap 2021 with Sebastian Esch now, and I'm really curious what he can share with us about the integration SAP meets Microsoft with the help of CAP. So, Sebastian, give it a go.
Thanks, Gregor. So, welcome from my side. My name is Sebastian. I'm from IB Solution. We are an SAP partner, and we participated in a Hack to Build that SAP does for partners to learn more about BTP and all the related technologies. And what we did is we built an application to streamline collaboration in sales processes. So a lot of organizations that have engineer to order products or that offer projects like we are a consulting company, have quite some effort into preparing offers for sales goals. And there's a lot of collaboration involved, the sales team, the project managers, the architects or engineers and so on. And everyone has different tools they work with. And the idea was basically to automate the setup of the collaboration environment. And for that, we started out with an extension built on CAP that connects to S4 and Sales Cloud. If the salesperson creates the quote in the system, then we pick that up and do all the organizational stuff in Microsoft, in the Microsoft environment, like SharePoint and Teams, for example. I would like to show you a quick demo of that. So I go to our Sales Cloud system. I just have to log in again. And can then just take a quote and copy the last one. And that's basically it. So from the sales code, we pick different information. We make the person that is the employee responsible, the owner of the team, and in Teams, and use the customer name and customer number and the quote or the quote description and the quote number in our in SharePoint. So the our application here picks up, sorry for that. The different quotes from different systems. So we have now seen that should have been 146 exactly. So 146 should now be here. And we have here our SharePoint folder that is created. So we are in the base folder for our customer, have the different quotes, the folders for the different quotes here automatically created, have subfolders for different stages of the documents, and also have set up now the team in Teams. So we already see here that the team is created. If you pay attention, you see here there's no welcome message yet, because one of the things we figured out during the Hack to Build was that the Microsoft API for Teams is asynchronous. So if the team is created on the Microsoft side, it's not directly available to post into. So we had to figure out how to do that then asynchronously. And yeah, that's basically the process, how it's running at the moment. And to show you what we built so that we all have a visual what we are talking about is we have our CAP application. We talk about to the backend systems like Sales Cloud and S4HANA via Cloud Connector, because our S4HANA is on premise. Sales Cloud works directly. We use the event enablement in Sales Cloud and in S4HANA to push the messages about the sales quotes to the CAP application. For Sales Cloud, we had to build an integration iFlow because the direct connection from Sales Cloud to Event Mesh was not possible. And then we have, of course, the connection to the MS Graph API that enables us to create Teams and SharePoint folders. And we have used a lot of services on BTP, like I talked about the Teams API. So we actually create a job afterwards. We have triggered the creation of the team that then checks if the team has been successfully created and updates our team information. We use the application logging. We use HANA on the cloud and the HTML5 repository for our frontend application. Right, so we can check here. So now we also have our welcome message posted into here. And yeah, we can have a look at the different things we did in the application. So one of the topics is, of course, we use a lot of different Cloud Foundry services. So our MTA file is quite big. So that's one of the challenges. You have to really understand how this MTA stuff works, what the parameters are for the services and so on, and how this all plays together. That can be challenging at times. Then we can look into the services. Here is also a sneak peek. We plan to do some integration with Confluence, for example. But we have here the external services, like we have seen in the previous talk. We have from Sales Cloud, it's pretty easy. There's one big EDMX file that covers all the APIs of Sales Cloud. The S4 APIs are a little bit more differentiated. That makes it necessary to import all the APIs you need. So we have business partner and sales code. You see that also then here in the package JSON, where you have the external services. You have to keep in mind that you have to create multiple destinations if you have external services from the same system, because the URL prefix for the service is more or less part of the destination. Right, so then for the external services, we also did some remapping and protection in our external service, where we try to more or less name the entities from Sales Cloud and from S4 as similar as possible. And because we mix here, basically all our custom implementation does is write some logging and forward the requests to the external service, or exactly. And we use that then in our internal, or in our representation of the sales code, which is, if I show you the model, so we only have this one entity at the moment. This is our sales code with all the information we need. We already see here some of the annotations for the front end. And the heavy lifting happens in the custom implementation here of the sales code service. So we have here our different topics in the event mesh, and we connect here to the messaging service, and then basically have here handlers for sales code created on the S4 side, and the same for sales code created on the C4 side. If you compare the calls to the back end, then you can see the S4 API is quite more complex. So we get the sales quote based on the ID that we get in the message. Read then the sales quote partners. Read then the business partner for the ship to. Have to do some mapping for the personal number from the employee responsible. Have to get that business partner. Have to read the address and then the email address. And then we basically have all the information we need, mainly the customer number, customer name, quote description and quote ID, and the email address of the person responsible. And then store it in the database. We have an external JavaScript file for the Graph API. Update the SharePoint information because we get it back immediately, and then create a job. And then we are more or less done on the event handling side. The C4 side is a lot easier because we just have to do two backend calls. We get the sales quote and the partners. And the partners already contain all the relevant information. We don't need the complicated S4 stuff. And then basically we have an action that is called from the job that we create, that updates the information, and then we are more or less done for that part. For the jobs part is pretty easy. We just use the SAP Jobs client. Have wrapped the create, delete, and fetch job functions into promises, and then this is the more or less the configuration for the job, and then it's just the call to the client, and then we are done here. The MS Graph stuff is a little bit more involved, so we have created here some custom implementation on top of the Graph client from Microsoft to orchestrate all this. Creating of the SharePoint folders is the easy part. Teams is a little bit more involved because we also, for example, changed the tabs. For example, we have then here the link to SharePoint in the Teams channel. And for that, we also need to have the team in the channel created before you can manipulate that. And we are in the process of removing some, as far as possible from the team side, tabs we don't want, and so on. And yeah, so external service integration with the SAP services is pretty easy and very nice. Integration with event mesh is pretty easy and nice. The connection to the event to the application logging on BTP was a little bit more of a challenge, because the documentation on CDS side for that is at the moment not there yet, and then you are confronted with a lot of different options. So the most obvious one would be to just use JavaScript console for logging, but that has some challenges with application logging. Like, for example, the log level is always info regardless of what you tell console to log with. And you also have challenges like if we check the logging here, I don't know if this is sufficient. We need to get the messages. as well. But here you see this is now okay, this is just the UTC stuff. Here we see what happened. So for example, the somewhere the job is created, and you already see here there are some messages from CDS itself in here. One of the big changes is if the application logging gets the messages with some line breaks, then you have the information pretty much scattered all over the place, and you have to keep track that you, at least if you have control over the log messages, and that you format it in a way that the lines stay together. For example, especially if you dump JSON out here, if you're not careful, then you get each line of the JSON in a different log message. And the challenge is they have all the same timestamp, and application logging sorts them some kind of randomly. So from a usability perspective, this is then quite bad. But what we now used in our implementation is the CF Node.js logging support, because they have pretty good support, for example, for express requests. But you then have to do some tweaking, like here, if you run it locally, you would get JSON output, which is pretty unreadable if you don't have Kibana for reading that. So this is what we do here in the server.js to actually make that a little bit more nice. Yeah, and I would say it was a very good experience to develop this application with CAP. You get pretty fast to first results. As DJ said in the beginning, you have an OData service set up with a front end in minutes. It's pretty easy to consume external services if you don't step into any pitfalls. But for Sales Cloud and S4, we experienced no problems. The integration with Event Mesh was pretty easy, at least on the CAP side. We had a challenge on the Sales Cloud side because the HTTP adapter in CPI quotes slashes in the URL, and the topic names in Event Mesh contain slashes. So we had to figure out, and there is, I think, somewhere a blog post that talks about double and triple quoting those parameters. And then it finally worked. The Sales Cloud API is pretty easy to use in comparison to the very, structured, but therefore harder to understand for people that are not that familiar with it as for APIs. Stuff that can be a little bit hard on the cloud application programming model side is documentation. I mean, the documentation is growing and it gets more and more and it gets more detailed. But for example, for the not officially yet released topics like event messaging and logging, there's just nothing there. So you basically have to either rely on blog posts or to dig into the code itself. That helps. I think logging will improve soon, but at the moment you are more or less either stuck with understanding how the CDS internal logging works or figuring out which of the available options is the right one. You have basically console log, which doesn't work well with application logging. Cloud SDK brings logging. There's this CF Node.js logging, but there's also SAP logging, I think. So you have to figure out that what you want to use and what's best for you. Not in this project, but in another project, we had some challenges with what works on HANA versus what works on SQLite. Especially if you want to have the user context somewhere in your queries that works on HANA but not on SQLite. And of course, the MTA topic is quite complex. Yeah, and then the cloud integration and event mesh topic I already talked about. And then I think I'm already almost out of time.
Yeah, perfect timing, Sebastian. Excellent. Can you elaborate perhaps a bit on what's hard on the S4HANA APIs?
Yeah, basically the structure. So you have to understand that you have, if you want the email address from for example the employee responsible, you have to get the business partner for the employee responsible. Then you have to get the addresses of the employee responsible, and then you have to get the email address from that.
Yeah.
On the C4 side, it's part of the sales code partner information.
Mm-hmm.
So you have one API request, and you have 4 on the S4 side, I think. And what also took me a little bit time to figure out was the S4 API, for example, returns in the sales code partner the employee ID, and then
Mm-hmm.
you have to figure out how you get the business partner for this employee.
Yeah.
If you don't realize that you can find that in the business partner identification information, then you are stuck a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's quite hard. One comment or information that I can give you: you don't have to create multiple destinations if you use the path attribute in the credential section.
Okay. Cool.
So we simply use one destination per backend system, but defines then the path which is specific for the API you want to call.
That's very nice information.
Yeah. Good. I'm a bit troubled with the questions because it's rearranged for me, so I didn't get it to the top, or they were just not displayed anymore for me. How to consume MS Graph? Oh, okay. How would you consume MS Graph on CAP? Basically, you answered that in your talk by using the Microsoft provided library, but that you extended.
Yeah, so basically we built our business layer on top of the MS Graph API. So the CAP application basically calls a method that, or a function that creates the SharePoint folders and the Teams channel, and then updates the Teams channel. But of course, behind that, there are multiple different API calls to the Graph API. So that's what basically we have then wrapped and built on top of the Graph API.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Basically, I would think it should be easy to use the Graph API, as it's also an OData v4 service. Huh?
Yeah, but Microsoft has some interesting interpretation about the metadata, I think.
Okay, good, good to know. And there was one question, I don't know if you can answer that, but you talked extensively on the monitoring part, which was really nice. What monitoring tracing tools is used in the platform service? Kibana, question mark. Also
Yeah, so,
possible to inject custom logs from CAP service layer to the logs.
So the BTP application logging is built on top of Elasticsearch and Kibana. Mm-hmm. And the second part of the question, I think that's exactly what we do. So we have our log messages in our services. And depending on the logging framework you use, you can also, for example, have custom fields in your Kibana log messages. So you can, for example, put the the module that your log message is for into some field that you can then just filter on in Kibana or something like that. So that's pretty strong.
Excellent. And you showed us some nice coding. I still have to post the tweet. I hope I can do that. Not sharing any private information about the setup of your of the logger you did.
No, I think I've shown no sensitive information, but I have to say I unfortunately can't, of course, share the source code because this is something we are not developing as a product on our side.
Very nice. And I wish you a lot of success with also the product part of it. What I would have changed is I would put the number of the quote in at the beginning to have the sorting correct.
Yeah, that's something that we have discussed as well, because I mean, in SharePoint, the people that work actually on the quote don't really. I mean, the background is the inside the customer folder we have the numbers in front, because then we have more or less a sequential list in which the quotes are processed. So newer quotes will end at the bottom. But for the customers, we have switched it around because most people don't know the customer number.
Oh yeah, now I got it. Okay. We have to wrap it to have some time for the next presenter to come up. I thank you very, very much. I hope you stay around, be available in the chat if there's further questions, and also happy to join us at 4 for the after show.
I will do so.
Thank you, Sebastian. See you.